Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rebecca Keppel. In today's video, I'm going to share 5 different ways to use the brand new pattern paper release from Waffle Flower. I have several videos sharing ways to use pattern paper on cards, but Waffle Flower's pattern paper is extra special. If you haven't seen my video of their first pattern paper release, I'm going to link to that in the YouTube description box below, and you can check it out after this video. But I will share some of the things that make their pattern paper super special. And I'm going to share 5 different cards and 5 unique ways to use this pattern paper. Since we're gearing up for the holidays, stick around until the end of the video where I share a quick and easy way to use this pattern paper to create a set of cards that you can give as a gift. First, let's take a look at the new pads that are available and what makes them so special. Here are all 6 pads from this month's release. First, let's take a look at the Christmas half-half pads, which include Christmas half-half lines and Christmas half-half dots. The first thing you'll notice about Waffle Flower pattern paper is the size. Rather than traditional 6x6 pads, Waffle Flower's pattern paper is actually 8.5 by 5.5, which means you get 2 full-sized A2 panels out of each sheet with no waste. The lines pad includes color straight stripes on white and then a solid color, and then half a lighter color diagonal lines on a darker color and darker color lines on a lighter color. The same is true for half-half dots and half-half lines in the Caprice color scheme. The colors in this family are jewel-toned and perfect for fall and Thanksgiving, but versatile enough to choose and use year-round. Next up is JJ Bolton's Christmas Stripes. This pad is not part of the half-half collection. So the stripes in this pad are continuous patterns across the entire sheet, which means you can create larger size card backgrounds such as 5x7 or Slimline Cards, which a 6x6 pad would not allow you to do. The other thing that is great about JJ's pads is that they coordinate with the panel dies that she designed for Waffle Flower. I'll share how they work with the new Christmas tree panel die in a few minutes. You can see here that the hearts panel die can be used over the stripes in this pad to create multicolor heart backgrounds. You can line them up so each heart is one color, or even line them up so that each heart is half and half colors. Last but not least, this pattern paper release includes Happy Gnomes illustrated by Liz Meidinger, which includes lots of little gnomes, woodland creatures, scenic backgrounds. I'll share how this pattern paper pad works with the already available Happy Gnomes stamp and matching die set. I did just want to mention again that another benefit of these pattern paper pads is that they fit right inside a bin that holds your stamps and dies, since they are only 5.5 wide rather than 6 inches wide. Here I store all of my Waffle Flower stamps and dies, and the pattern paper pads fit right in there too. I'll link to this dual storage bin down in the YouTube description box below. As I mentioned, Waffle Flower's pattern paper is actually 8.5 inches long, which means that you can grab a continuous pattern from one of the pads like JJ Bolton's Christmas Stripes and create a slimline card background with it. This would be impossible with a 6x6 pad. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Here I've used the Waffle Flower Slimline Rectangles die to die cut one of the diagonal stripes patterns from JJ Bolton's Christmas Stripes pad. Like I mentioned, all the patterns from this pad are continuous, so you can cut them into 5x7 or slimline panels, or you can cut them in half for 2 A2 panels. I'm using VersaFine Black Onyx ink. It's a pigment ink to stamp the Merry Christmas from the new Merry Christmas sentiments on the pattern paper. The pigment ink sits on top of the pattern paper, allowing it to look crisp and black. Since we're stamping on a slimline sized card, I need to use my original Misty. To really make the sentiments stand out, I'm going to pour clear embossing powder on top until the entire sentiment is completely covered. Then I tap off the excess and use my heat tool to melt the embossing powder until the sentiment looks black and shiny. Next, I'll stamp a sub-sentiment from the same stamp set, this time using Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink. I've never used this particular stamp before, so I have to stamp it multiple times to get complete coverage. I fussy cut out the banner sub-sentiment and then popped it up with some pieces of foam tape. I die cut some of the Waffle Flower Nesting Stars die out of silver glitter cardstock, and I'm adhering those to my card with tape runner. To finish this card off, I'm using some black enamel dots from the Waffle Flower Special Delivery Enamel Dots set. I love being able to use pattern paper on Slimline Cards for a colorful and fun background with these Waffle Flower 8.5 length pads. The other really cool thing about JJ Bolton's Christmas stripes and her previous pattern paper design, which was called JJ's Rainbows, is that they're designed to go along with the panel dies that she's designed for Waffle Flower as well. What this means is that you can create some really cool, colorful backgrounds in a snap. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I've already mentioned that JJ Bolton's Christmas Stripes pattern paper patterns work really well with the dies that she's designed, including the Hearts panel die that I showed in the beginning. Here, I've used the Big Dots die to cut out white cardstock, and see how amazing these large dots look when they're backed with the different pattern papers from this pad. Well, the same exact thing is true for this brand new Christmas tree panel die I've also cut out of white cardstock using the Christmas tree panel die, and look at how cute these little trees look when backed with various patterns from this pad. I decided to go with the horizontal stripes pattern paper, which makes each line of trees horizontally a different color. All I needed to do is cut this sheet in half, so I lined it up at 4 1/4, and I'll end up with 2 A2 card panels, and I can set one aside for a future card. This would be a great way to make several cards at once too. Now the Christmas tree panel die actually cuts a 4 by 5 1/4 panel, so you can move it around on the striped background to see how you want it to look. You can have multicolor trees or one color tree. You can line it up at the top or the bottom depending on which color you want to start with. You can even have a rainbow border around the whole panel or trim it down. Once you decide, simply place tape runner on the back of the die panel and place it down on the pattern paper. I decided to trim it down, and this thin rainbow strip of pattern paper I will definitely save for the side of a future card. I decided to adhere a stamped and die cut sentiment to blue lines of trees on my card, so I'm cutting out the sentiment from those same exact stripes on the other panel that we had cut and saved aside. Once it's die cut, I place that die cut stamped image back inside the panel on my MISTI so that I can perfectly line up the stamp on the die cut piece. I'm going to heat emboss, so I treat it with anti-static and then stamp with Versamark. Then I pour white embossing powder on top, tap off the excess, and then hold it still with tweezers on my Waffle Flower water media mat while I heat set it. The mat is a high-grade silicone, so you can heat set right on top of it. I use little strips of foam tape to pop up the sentiment and then matted the whole panel on a half-half lines Christmas paper. Lastly, I used Thermoweb Ultra Bond liquid glue and my Studio Katia embellishment wand to adhere small sequins to add a little bit of shine. The fact that these pattern papers coordinate with their panel dies is so brilliant and makes it really easy to make a fun, colorful card. I love doing die cut inlay techniques, especially with different colors of cardstock or ink blended cardstock. But there's something really cool about doing inlay die cutting with pattern paper designs. And when you get a pad from Waffle Flower, like the half-half stripes or half-half dots, you know that all the colors in that pad coordinate really beautifully together. So let me share how I used the die cut inlay technique with Waffle Flower's brand new half-half lines Christmas. This gorgeous panel die is the new Waffle Flower Winter Floral panel die and is perfect for a die cut inlay technique. To start, I flip through the half-half lines Christmas pad and pull out colors I want to use on my card. Now I have a stack of 4 1/4 by 8.5 inch sheets of pattern paper, so I cut them all down in half into A2 panels. All the colors I'm going to use to inlay, I'm going to use with Easy Cut adhesive, which is a thin double-sided adhesive sheet. Simply peel back the top protective layer and lay the pattern paper down on the sticky sheet. The back of Waffle Flower pattern paper is white, so you don't need to choose sides. So the white side is going down onto the adhesive. Replace the top protective layer so you can easily trim off the excess with nonstick scissors. Do the same for as many colors as you want in your inlay. I also cut the die out of the gray solid from the Half Lines Christmas and the solid red from the same pad. I don't need any easy cut on these because I'm adhering the entire gray panel down onto the red, so tape runner is fine here. I don't mind getting excess tape runner on the smaller bits that I'm going to cover up, but the large petals of the flower are going to stay red from the paper underneath, so I don't want to get a bunch of adhesive hanging out over there. I never quite get a panel down straight, but that's okay. Just use a trimmer to slice off the excess. Now I'm ready to start creating my inlay pattern. The great thing about the Easy Cut adhesive is once you adhere it, you can basically peel and stick all these little pieces into the open spots. The lines from the pattern paper really add an extra element of interest, and the colors all go so well together since they're all from the same pad. If you don't have Easy Cut adhesive, you can do this same technique using liquid glue. Just a couple of small drops in the panel openings and then pop the die cut pieces in. This may seem time consuming, but I actually found it very calming. It's kind of like working on a puzzle, and you can again create a couple of different cards by mixing up which colors go where. I decided to add some white gel pen details, which is another way to get an additional color in there without die cutting another piece of paper. For those of you with sharp eyes who are waiting on my white gel pen comparison video, you'll see I'm using a different pen this time. I promised I would try several out for a few weeks, and my testing is still going strong. I love all the detail added by the lines from the pattern paper, and these colors are such a fresh, modern take on Christmas color. I also added some gel pen dots. I'm simply just pressing the point down to the cardstock to create these tiny pinpoint dots, and it's little details like this that make a card like this extra special. I'm using another solid red piece from the same pattern paper pad to stamp and heat emboss the sentiment. I love that this pad comes with solids too, perfect for matting your card panels or stamping sentiments like this. After heat setting it, letting it cool, and die cutting it, I decided the red took away too much from the card background, which should be the star of this show. So I ended up making my sentiment on gray solid instead. If you're looking for quick and easy, there's nothing cuter than Waffle Flower's brand new Happy Gnomes pattern paper pad, which was designed by Liz Meidinger. If you have the Liz Meidinger stamps and dies, you can easily cut out images from this pattern paper pad and create the cutest scene. So here is the Happy Gnomes stamp set and matching dies, and this is the brand new Happy Gnomes pattern paper. I'm going to choose this sheet to create my background. Remember, this sheet is 8.5 inches long, so I'll cut it in half for 2 A2 panels and leave one aside for a future card. Next, I'll use the matching dies from the stamp set and cut out several gnomes from this sheet of pattern paper by temporarily adhering them with Thermoweb purple tape and running them through my die cut machine. The dies can also be used to cut out holly and mushrooms and rabbits. All are perfect to create our little gnome scene. I've cut an A2 panel from the Caprice half lines pad and cut down my gnome background to 4 by 5 1/4 to mat it on top of the dark blue. The fun part is deciding where all the little characters will go. It's kind of like playing with color forms for when you were a kid. I'm stamping the Hello Sentiment from the Essential Sentiments stamp set in chipped sapphire Distress Oxide ink. I'll use foam adhesive and cut tiny strips of foam squares to pop up the characters in the foreground, and then use tape runner to adhere the items flat for the background. I've also die cut the sentiment and popped it up on the mushroom house roof. Since this card was so easy and required almost no work on my part, I'm going to add some Nouveau Crystal Glaze for some shine. I'll add it to the mushroom dots and the sentiment for dimension and shine. Then I added some Nouveau Shimmer Pen to some of the elements on the gnomes as well. The other thing that I love about creating cards with the Waffle Flower pattern paper pads is that all the colors look so beautiful together, and there are so many options of the shades and hues within the one pattern paper pad. This makes it really easy to create an entire set of cards with just a few strips of pattern paper. This is the brand new Diagonal Stripes die, which cuts out diagonal stripes in an A2 size. For this card set, I'm going to use pattern papers from the Half Half Dots Caprice pad, and I'll use different sentiments from the Essential Sentiments combo. I chose several colors and cut diagonal stripes out of the A2 panels. I didn't need easy cut adhesive for these because the stripes are wide enough to adhere down with tape runner. I have 5 white A2 card panels, and I'm planning out all the different color combinations before I get to work adhering them down. I'm using the corners and the next 2 largest stripes after the corners. I'm not using the large center stripes because I want to leave room for my sentiments, but I'll save these larger stripes for a future project. Once everything was adhered down, I used the other halves of the panels that I did not die cut to create my sentiments. For black stamp sentiments, I used VersaFine Black Onyx ink. I love that this sentiment stamp set has a matching die set available, so you can place your sentiment anywhere on your card panel. It also allows you to add dimensional adhesive to your sentiment like I did here. For the darker pattern papers, I used white heat embossing to create my sentiments. You may have to cut your foam tape or squares down into little strips to fit behind the sentiment, but I thought it was totally worth it. The popped up sentiment adds a nice touch in the white center of these cards. I love giving a set of cards with lots of different sentiments as a gift, so the recipient has a stash of cards to send out for several occasions, and this design is basic enough to give to anyone. I couldn't resist adding some enamel dots for shine though. I decided to cut all the panels down to 4 by 5 1/4 so that when I adhere them down to card bases, there would be a nice margin around the whole panel. I put all the cards in a clear bag. Unfortunately, I do not have envelopes right now. I'll have to place an order for a bunch from Gina K Designs before I actually give this set of cards to anyone. But I wanted to share how cute they look all sealed up in a bag and tied with some baker's twine. A set of handmade cards can be such a thoughtful gift. If you want to see Waffle Flower's first pattern paper release, check out this video here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit that bell so you can be notified every time I have a new video available. I'll have some other videos that you might be interested in listed over here. Until next time, please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. If you're looking for quick and easy, just keep knocking on the table that's holding microphones. That's not really helpful. So